تم بدء التسجيل.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Is my voice coming clear to you, all of you? Kindly tell me if my voice is clear to all of you. Okay, so it is okay, right? So as you know that this is the last week of course before the midterm, and we had to complete our chapters before the in the face-to-face class. So this hour, what I'm going to do, I'm going through chapter by chapter of the whole course and list the important questions and just give a small description of all of the important questions that we have from every chapter. You can take it as a revision or you can take it as a study guide. It's all up to you. What you have to understand is that within this 1 hour we have to cover all the 5 chapters that we have from the examination perspective. So I would not like move the slides on the software. I will tell you the number of the slide where any important question starts, and then we will discuss that question in a little detail, and then we will move on to the next question. So if you can open chapter 1 of the course. Chapter 1, as all of us know, has a lot of questions from the perspective of introduction perspective. So it can have MCQs, true, false, a lot of MCQs and true, false, but I don't think it is my assessment that there will not be any kind of short or applied question from this chapter. We can be sure about that, but MCQs and true, false can be there from this particular chapter. However, just to be on the safer side, the important questions from chapter 1, if you go to the slide number 7, if you go to the slide number 7 of the chapter, slide 7, chapter 1, there is a list of advantages of using project management. So this can be a good question from chapter 1, list and maybe elaborate or just list the advantages of using formal project management. As I told you in the previous courses as well, when you are asked to list something, it is not necessary that you list every point. So if there are like 10 points and you can list maybe 6 or 7 points, that is sufficient. Second, you don't need to follow the exact words which are given in the slides. You can use your own words, but the meaning of the words that you are using should be similar to the meaning that the words convey which have been used in the lecture slides. Second important question, slide number 8. What is a project? What is a project and what are its major attributes? So on the slide 8, there is the definition of the project. On slide 9, there are some examples of IT projects. On slide 12, there are the attributes of the project. So the question about projects from slide 8 to slide 12 is an important question, which tells what is the nature of project, why the project is different from the organization, and what qualities do the projects have. For example, the projects have defined time, projects have defined resources, projects have limited outcomes, the projects have defined outcomes. All of these are the attributes of the projects. Next question, very important question from chapter 1, slide number 14, which gives the triple constraints of project management. So from slide 14 and slide 15, you have a proper question. What is project management? And explain the triple constraint of project management. As we all know, project management is the knowledge which deals with skills and tools required to successfully execute the project. The triple constraints of the project management are the time, you have to meet the project within given time, cost, you have to meet the project within given cost, and scope, you have to meet all the defined and agreed requirements which were given to you when the project started. So third question, what is a project? What is project management, and what do we mean by triple constraints of project management? Slide 14 and 15. Very important question starts from slide number 18, and these are about the project management knowledge areas. As you remember, we mentioned that there are a total of 9 project management knowledge areas. 4 knowledge areas are known as core knowledge areas. These are scope, time, cost, and quality. Then there are 4 facilitating knowledge areas. These are human resource, communication, risk, and procurement management. And then there is one which we can say that it is project integration management. One knowledge area which affects and is affected by all the other knowledge areas. So this is one separate knowledge area. 4 core knowledge areas, 4 facilitating knowledge areas, and 1 area project integration management. Is my voice still clear? You can understand it properly? Fahad or Tanira or anyone? Is my voice clear? Okay. Moving further from this chapter, there are many important questions from the MCQ point of view. So don't take this chapter lightly. There is a lot to read in this chapter. Slide number 24. In slide number 24, the top 10 factors for the success of the project. So top 10 factors like executive support, user involvement, experienced project manager, clear business objectives, minimize scope, standard software infrastructure, firm basic requirements, sorry, formal methodology, reliable estimates, small milestones, etc. These are the top 10 factors which contribute in making the project successful. Next important question from slide number 26 and 27. What is the difference between program management and project portfolio management? Program and project portfolio management are the same thing. A program is a combination of many similar projects. The person who manages the program is known as project portfolio manager. He holds a lot of projects in his hand. So he manages the whole group of the projects which fall under that particular program. Small question, not very important question. Next important question is, what are the suggested skills for the project manager? Slide number 32, slide number 33, slide number 34. What are the suggested skills for the project manager? Slide 32, 33 and 34 give the various formal and informal skills that project managers should have. They should have good knowledge of the environment. They should have general management skills. They should have soft skills. They should have to be comfortable with the change. They should understand the organization. So all of these are factors. Then on slide number 35, the top 10 skills required by the project manager have been listed. So you can just prepare this particular slide and this question can be answered. What are the 10 most important skills and competencies required from the project manager on slide number 35? Okay, so I don't see any other important question from chapter 1. These are the important questions that you need to cover from chapter 1. Any question from chapter 1? Yes, basically program and portfolio are same. Program means the group of similar projects. The person who manages the program is known as project portfolio manager, right? Or program manager. We can use the same name for him. These are the similar kind of things. Anyone has any question from chapter 1? Okay, moving to chapter 2. Chapter 2 tells us about how the IT projects are different from any other project and how IT plays a critical role in successful project management. It's a relatively simpler chapter, not very difficult questions, but we can expect one short question from this chapter at least. Apart from that, MCQs and true false can come from anywhere from this particular chapter. So the first important question from chapter 2 on slide number 5. Explain the system view of a project management. Explain the system view of project management, how projects are represented as the systems. Basically, system approach is a philosophy which says that when you want to do something, think of it as a system. What is a system? A system is a regulated set of activities which takes some input, processes them, and generates some output. So any system that we see in the world is basically comprising of certain components which work in a regulated manner. They take some input and generate some output. So the philosophy says that the project management is also like a system. It has many activities in it. It expects some formal inputs, then it works on those formal inputs to generate some formal outputs. To do this, to transform the project in the form of a system, we have to implement three-part strategy. This three-part strategy includes number 1, systems philosophy, number 2, systems analysis, number 3, systems management. So when we transform the project into a system, we have to develop a philosophy for it, a rationale for it, an analysis of what should be the best outcome from this system, and management when the system is being run. Okay, next question, very important question. It starts from slide number 6. 3-sphere model for systems management. So thinking that we are visualizing our project as a system is run by the support of 3 spheres in the organization. One sphere is the business for which that system is being made. So the business for which that project will be implemented. Number 2, the organization which is managing the project. And number 3, the technology that we are going to use for making the project successful. So these are the 3 spheres, and what various important questions for these 3 spheres are also listed along with it. This is an important question from chapter 2, 3-sphere model for systems management. Now organization, one sphere of this starts on slide 7. How do we understand the organization? What are the factors that we take into consideration to understand the organization? As you can see, there are, yes, in the organization we can have different portfolio managers. If the organization takes many projects in various different fields, then we have different portfolio managers. Yes. So how do we understand the organization? We understand the organization by understanding its 4 frames. On slide number 7, you see the 4 frames: structural frame, how the organization is structured; human resource frame, who are the people who work for that organization; political frame, what kind of system in which that organization runs; and symbolic frame, what are the major values that the organization upholds. Another important question, very important question from chapter 2, organizational structures. So as you remember, we said that there are 3 kinds of organizations found anywhere in the world. One is called functional. A functional organization is one which does not run any project. It only runs day-to-day operations. It does not have any projects in it, so no project managers are required. The second kind of organization is project organization. It is an organization which strictly manages projects. It does not do any day-to-day activity except managing the project. A matrix organization is one where some of the people are working on the project and some of the people are working on the functions. Very important question, organizational structure, slide 9, and then slide 11. Slide 11 contains various kind of characteristics for all these 3 kind of organizations. Now the matrix organization can be further divided into three categories. One is called weak matrix. In weak matrix, there are the matrix kind of organization. In weak matrix, there are limited number of projects, and more of the people are working on the functions. In balanced matrix, almost it is 50-50. 50% of the people work on the project, while 50% of the people work on the function. And in strong matrix, most of the people are working on the project, very few people are working on the functions. And the remaining characteristics which are given are also very important. You can list any number of characteristics if the question comes. The next important question from chapter 2, slide number 13, the top 10 characteristics of organizational culture. So these 10 characteristics are given, and as you can see that out of these 10 characteristics, some characteristics have a star on them, some characteristics don't have a star on them. The characteristics which have a star on them are very important for project-based organizations. The characteristics which don't have a star on them are equally important for any kind of organization. Next important question, slide number 16, chapter 2. Why is it important for the senior management to be committed with the project? The reason is that senior management is the one providing you with all the resources required, human resource, technical resource, equipment, infrastructure, time, etc. If the senior management is not involved, the project will not get its due resources, the project will fall in the abyss, project will not be going any further, the project will start facing problems. That is why it is important to make sure that senior management is on board on the project and is willing to undertake the project properly. So project management requires commitment from senior management and help from the senior management as well. So this was slide number 16 and 17. The importance of top management commitment. So when we say that senior management should be committed, it means senior management should be committed to IT as well, because if the senior management does not understand IT properly, they cannot appreciate the work that is being done for the IT projects, because IT projects are different from any other kind of projects. Next question. Project phases and project life cycle. If you remember, this starts from slide number 21 and continues on slide number 22, then slide number 23. So a project has in importance 4 major phases, as you can see on slide number 23: concept, development, implementation, and closeout. So within these, various kind of activities are performed. If you properly prepare slide number 23, this question will be completely answered. What are the major phases of project life cycle, and what are the deliverables that we achieve in these particular phases? Next important question, slide number 24. And it says that system development life cycles can be divided into 2 categories. One is called predictive, the other is called adaptive. So in predictive project management, what we do is that we already have a lot of idea about the similar kind of projects from the past. That is why we predict how this project should be run. So if we are working with the traditional software development lifecycle models like waterfall, like prototyping, like linear, these are the traditional models. These traditional models can work perfect with the predictive life cycle, because these take projects which already have a lot of information. That is why we can predict with certain certainty what will happen in future. Adaptive software development is a model where we don't have much idea about how the project will be run. So we adapt. We start with the minimum level of planning, and as we move forward, our successes can strengthen various good practices, and our problems can weaken certain bad practices, which can later be removed, and further good activities can be incorporated. So slide number 24 about what is a predictive model and what is an adaptive model. Then slide number 25 gives an explanation of predictive model. Okay, next question, slide number 31, probably the last question from chapter 2. What are the major issues related to globalization that can affect the project managers? So basically it's a part of a large question. The question starts from slide 30. What are the recent trends affecting IT project management? There are 3 recent trends: outsourcing, giving your project to someone else outside your organization to develop it for you; offshoring, if you outsource your project to some other organization outside your country, it is called offshoring; and virtual team means a team which works from their homes and makes use of their home resources. They don't require a formal office or something, while the project manager is in contact with them through some kind of software which can help all of them interact with each other in live environment. This is known as virtual team. So virtual team has a lot of advantages as well, as you can see in slide number 33. This can be an important question as well from this chapter. So chapter 2. Now anyone has any questions? Okay, let me check. Yes, slide 22 to 25. What was in slide 22 to 25? Let me check. Slide number 22 to 25. Slide number 22 to 25. Basically, slide number 21 and 23 are very important for this particular question, which talk about various phases of the project life cycle and various kind of deliverables. So it would be better if you start 22 and 23. This is one question. The second question starts from 24, which talks about the difference between predictive life cycle and adaptive life cycle. So these are 2 separate questions. Next question. Last question about the recent trends. Recent trends start from slide 30, I think. It is on slide 30. Then the explanation of outsourcing given on slide 32. Then the advantages of virtual team given on slide number 34. This last question is explained on these 3 slides. Any other questions from chapter 2? Okay, coming to chapter 3. In chapter 3, the initial deliverables of a project have been described. So from chapter 3 we start on the practical side of this course. The first 2 chapters were basically introductory and a lot of conceptual. So in chapter 3 we will use a case study to understand how the project management processes are grouped together to manage the information. Now, project management, basically chapter 3 is about the project management process group. If you remember, there are 9 knowledge areas that we discussed in chapter 1. 4 were core, 4 were facilitating, and 1 was project management process group. This was the separate group which affects all the other knowledge areas and gets affected by the other projects as well. From slide number 4 gives an idea of what a project management process group is and what does it include within itself as the sub-processes. So project management is basically a set of many processes which are executed together to make sure that the project runs in time. Various kind of sub-processes in it include initiating processes, planning processes, executing processes, and monitoring processes. So if you remember the diagram of process model given in chapter 2, it included these 4 phases. So as a software engineer, you do your work in the project developing the software, while project manager on his part uses these 4 major groups to keep a track on how the software is being developed. Next question, slide number 15. What do we mean by project pre-initiation and what are the major tasks involved in it? Slide number 15, very important slide. What do we mean by project pre-initiation and what are the major tasks involved in it? All of this information is given on slide number 15, so you can prepare slide 15 properly to answer this question. Second question from the knowledge area, what is a project charter and what do we mean by the kick-off meetings? If you remember, if you have seen the book, there is an example of project charter given in the book as well. So project charter is basically a kind of contract which clearly defines the cost of the project, the duration of the project, the people responsible for the project, their information, the total objectives of the project, the development methodology of the project. It contains all of that information, and to get that information we do kickstart meetings before the project starts so that we can gather all the necessary idea about the requirements that the user would be putting in the project. So that is why we do the kickstart meetings. So project charter and kick-off meetings. Project planning. Project planning is another subset of project management process group, and its responsibility is to create the project plan. So what we were seeing in chapter 5 during this week, it was chapter 5 during this week and the previous week, chapter 6, sorry, we were talking of these particular areas like how to create network models, like how to create Gantt charts, like how to create critical path. All of this is the responsibility of the project planning subgroup in the project management process group. This is slide number 21. The next question from the lecture slides is project execution. What do we mean by project execution and what are the factors that we need to take into consideration? Next question from this chapter lies on slide number 27. What do we mean by project monitoring and controlling and how project monitoring and controlling is implemented? The last question from this chapter is project closing. What are the responsibilities that project manager has to take up when he is closing the project? So these are from the lecture slides, these are small questions, but for chapter 3 I would like to advise you something else. If you remember that in chapter 3 when we were revising, we looked at several templates from your book. For example, the template of the project charter, for example, the template of the project report, for example, the template of the project plan, various kind of templates that we discussed from the book. If it is possible for you, go back to the book to cover chapter 3 and look at all the templates carefully. You may have a question where you may be asked to draw anything, for example, to write the charter of the project. It can be a requirement, it can be a question in the examination. So you should, for chapter 3, you should go and read the book carefully, right? This is important for chapter 3. Okay, questions from chapter 3. Does anyone have any questions from chapter 3? So we can go to chapter 4 then. Okay, so we move to chapter 4. As you remember, in chapter 4, we talked about project integration management and various kind of activities that are performed to integrate the project properly, right? So there are a lot of questions in chapter 4 which we have to cover, and also the applied questions that are there. So we start from the first question from chapter 4. The first question from chapter 4, what do we mean by project integration management and why it is considered a key to the success of the project? Slide number 5. Slide number 5, slide number 6, slide number 7. These are the parts of this answer. What is a project management? What is a project integration management? Project integration management means combining all the components of the project into one coherent project, one big picture that we have to sell to the customer. This is what has been told in slide number 5. Slide number 6 and slide number 7, what are the processes, sub-processes inside the project integration management? So developing the project charter, developing the project management plan, directing and managing project execution, monitoring and control of the project, integrated change control, and close the project. These are the 6 major process areas within project integration management. Second important question from chapter 4, slide number 10, SWOT analysis. What is a SWOT analysis and why do we perform SWOT analysis for project selection? As you remember, in chapter 4, there was a lot of discussion about how the project is selected. So project is selected, as we mentioned, project is selected on 3 levels. One is SWOT analysis, where we evaluate the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for all of the projects, and the projects which have the highest level of opportunities or the lowest level of threats are selected as candidates for the next level. So SWOT analysis is an informal analysis in which all the various proposals for the project are studied. Every project's proposal's success, weakness, opportunities, and threats are properly analyzed, and then the project whose SWOT analysis is best are considered as candidates for selection to the project. Next question, financial analysis of the project, starting on slide number 17. Financial analysis of the project is done as the second level for the project selection, where we perform either net present value or rate of investment or payback analysis. Any one of these 3 or maybe all 3 can be used to financially analyze the candidate projects and to determine which of the project has the highest profitability involved with it. So very important sections from chapter 4. These 3 models, this can be your applied question: net present value, return on investment, payback analysis. So we will look one by one on all 3 of these. The first one is net present value. So as you remember, in net present value, we said that there are various factors that we have to consider. Those factors include, number 1, what is the level of discount, what is the level of discount for the project? The level of discount will be given to you in percentages. You will transform it into what we call it points. So 10% is equal to 0.1, 20% is equal to 0.2, 30% is equal to 0.3 and stuff. So discount rate is one factor which will be considered. We can consider it as R. The second factor that we consider is the total earning of that particular year, whose discount rate we are considering. The third factor is the number of years that we are talking about. So the first year will be taken as 0, the second year will be taken as 1, the third year will be taken as 2, and so forth. Then we apply it on a formula. In that formula, basically the method that we follow is the total amount that we have earned. It can be positive or it can be negative depending on the situation. It can be positive or it can be negative. So total earning, if it is in profit, means you earn more and spent less, then it will be positive. If you spent more and earn less, then it will be negative. So the earning of that year divided by 1 plus R raised to the power number of year. So that is the formula that we use to compute the discounted rate of every year. We start from the first year, and on the first year the discount rate is 0, so it becomes 0. However, with every passing year, this discount rate affects earning more and more, as you will apply in the equations. Does anyone have any question to ask about the net present value? In net present value, we take the discount rate, we add it with 1, and we take the power of this resultant value by the number of years that have passed. Then we divide the total earning of that year by the number that we have achieved so far. This gives us the net present value of that particular year. In order to calculate the net present value of the whole project life cycle, we add all the net present values of all the years together. The result that we get is the net present value of the project at current time. Any question about net present value? The next value that we consider after net present value is the return on investment. Return on investment is a simple calculation. Sorry, we were talking of net present value. Now we are talking of return on investment. Return on investment basically simply subtracts the spendings from the earnings. After a given period of time, if you have earned 30,000 riyals and the total amount that you spent so far is 25,000 riyals, your return on investment will be 30,000 riyals minus 25,000 riyals is equal to 5,000 riyals. So return on investment is very simple: total discounted benefits minus total discounted costs divided by the total discounted costs if you want to get a percentage of it. Payback analysis. Payback analysis is a graphical model to determine what will be the break-even point of the project. What we do is we start from the year 1 and we start plotting our earning and our spending of every year as they pile up. So we will see that our earnings almost start from 0 while our spending start very high, because initially the project is not delivering anything, project is being developed. However, as the time passes, the spending curve becomes more and more stable while the earning curve keeps on moving upward. The point where both of these cross each other is considered as the payback time, or break-even time, where all the costs and all the earning have been made equal. Next question, weighted scoring model. This is the last level which we study to evaluate which of the projects is the best. We list all the projects along x-axis of the graph, and we write all the factors that are considered important along the rows. We can say along the rows or along the x-axis, whatever we want to say. Now, every of these factors mentioned here has a certain weight. The total weight of all the factors combined should not exceed 100. Right? So we have these factors which we are going to apply on all of the projects. Then we give the scores to the projects from 1 to 100 for every factor. So when we give this score, then we normalize this score by the total weightage for that factor given by the project manager. So we normalize it, reduce it. Once all the prices have been reduced or normalized, then we add all the values of every single project. The project which has the highest score is the most competent project as being seen right now. The project which has the highest weighted score is considered to be the best candidate for selection. Next question, again the applied question, starting on slide number 23, project charter. As you can see, slide number 30 and 31, this is a complete template of project charter. You may be given a case study in the exam and you may be asked to write a project charter by yourself. You don't need to remember every heading, you need to remember every important section of this charter. And if there is some section for which you don't have information, you can simply write the name of that section and leave that section blank. Otherwise you fill those particular sections. Next important question starts on slide number 36. It is about project execution. While you have defined the project, while you have calculated its net present value, while you have calculated its payback time, while you have calculated its ROI, the weighted score method has been there. Now once all of these things are done, then you move towards executing the project. Executing the project means running the project. So when you are running the project, the important question that starts from this slide number 36, what are the things that project manager has to do for successful project execution? It starts from slide number 36 as you can see. Then slide number 37 also gives one factor that project manager has to ensure. Slide 38 gives another factor. Slide number 39 gives another factor. So from slide number 36 to slide number 39, this is about the project execution and its important factors. The next important question, the last important question from this chapter is change control and its associated concepts. Change control means to ensure that no change in the project takes place once the project has started until it has been approved by all the concerned stakeholders like project manager, like senior management, because they have a stake in successfully completing the project. And if they start accepting changes randomly, this may delay the project, this may delay the earnings as well. So we make a very strong integrated change control mechanism for which we develop change control boards. These change control boards study every change request and then they determine whether this change request can be accepted or not. A change request can only be accepted if it is within scope and its execution does not affect the project plan overall. This is a major criteria. So change control board looks all the change requests in the same criteria and then decides which one of these or few of these can be accepted while the others have to be rejected. So we have change control systems, we have change control board in order to make sure that changes don't affect the project. So you make all the timely changes. Configuration management. Configuration management means to configure the components of the project together in the form of a complete system. So suggestions for configuration management are present on slide number 48 and slide number 49. This is chapter 4. Questions? Fahad has a question. Let me see the questions that you have put. Okay, the first question, you said these are expectations. No, these are not expectations, these are projections. When the project managers work on the project, they are very experienced people and they have worked with similar kind of projects all over their life, not only as a project manager but as a professional developer or technician when he started his career. So he knows a lot about how much will be required. It is just like a projection like you make when you have to make a building. So you say that this much of cement will be required, this many of blocks will be required, this many of other materials will be required. These are not expectations. These are solid foundations on which your project will rest, and the project and the projections that have been made should be correct to a large extent because these are being made by an expert in that particular field. So here as well, these net present value and payback analysis and all of these are not just guesses or expectations. These are the projections, and once these are approved, the project will have to be completed within these projections. Okay, so the last chapter, chapter 6, as we did not study chapter 5, so we go into the last chapter, chapter 6, time management. Just like chapter 4, from chapter 6 there can be conceptual question as well as there can be applied question as well. So starting from the first question, the first question is why is it important to create project schedules? Why is it important to create project schedules? The answer is given on slide number 5 and slide number 4. Slide number 4 and 5, the first important question from chapter 6. What is the importance of project schedule for the project's successful execution? Second important question, slide number 7. What are the sub-process areas of project time management process? Now, time management, as you know, is one of the 4 core knowledge areas. Its sub-processes are defining activities, sequencing activities, estimating resources required, estimating durations, developing the schedule, controlling the schedule. Right? So, second important question on slide number 7. Next important question, slide number 9 and 10, define activities and activity attributes. What do we mean by activities and their attributes? Slide number 9 and 10. An activity is an independent task performed inside the project life cycle, which has its own resources, which has its own duration, which delivers its own output. Right? So the attributes are: what are the predecessors of this activity, what are the successors of this activity, what is the nature of dependency of this activity, etc., etc. All of these are given on slide 9 and slide 10. Next small question, milestone. This question can also come with the activity as well. Define and explain activity and milestone. A milestone basically is a point in time while the project is being executed where the project manager reviews performs a major review, looks at the performance of the project, looks at the deliverables which have been achieved, reviews them, and determines whether the project is going successful or the project is not going successful. The milestones are defined in the project's plan. The fourth important question is, this is also a conceptual question. What do we mean by sequencing activities? How many different kind of dependencies exist when we are sequencing the activities? Sequencing activities mean putting activities in an order so that we can know which activities will be executed first and which activities will be executed later, and which activities will be running in parallel and which activities will be running one after the other. So to sequence, we need to create dependencies between activities. There are three classes of dependencies. The first class is called mandatory dependencies. On slide number 14, these are the compulsory dependencies that you have to meet. Then there are discretionary dependencies. These are dependencies which project manager can decide to include or not. And lastly, there are external dependencies where an activity is dependent on some event outside the project. These have to be considered in the project plan as well. Next important question, network diagrams. Most probably you will have an applied question if any question comes from this part about network diagrams. Now, as you remember, we talked of two different kind of network diagrams. So we will not go into detail, just simply telling you there are two kind of network diagrams. One is called activity on arrow, the other is called PDM. In activity on arrow, the activities will be on the arrow and the details will be in the boxes. In PDM, the activities duration and other information will be on the boxes. Arrows will only represent the dependencies. So very important applied question. Learn how to create network diagram. This can be in the exam, and you may be asked to create a network diagram using AOA model or a network diagram using PDM model, or maybe you may be asked to create only network diagram depending on whichever suits you better. But it's better that you practice both, because the question can be where you can be asked to specifically draw AOA or specifically draw PDM. So very important applied question. Next question, how do we estimate the activities duration? How do we estimate activities duration? Explain three-point estimate and PERT technique. In order to calculate the duration of any activity, there are many methods. Some of these methods are statistical, some of these methods are experience based. The statistical models use a three-point estimation technique where we take three different values for each activity. One is called most likely, one is called optimistic, and one is called pessimistic. This three-point estimate is used in many methods such as Monte Carlo method, PERT method, Delphi method. In your chapter, in the later slides, PERT method has been described, where you take these three estimates and put these three estimates in a formula, which is 1 multiplied by optimist plus 4 multiplied by most likely plus 1 multiplied by pessimist divided by 6. This will give you the most likely value of the activity using PERT model, and duration estimation is performed using this technique. First, for each activity we calculate 3 points. Then for each activity we use these 3 points in the PERT formula to calculate the most likely value. So this is an important question. Another important question is Gantt chart. So what is Gantt chart, how the Gantt chart is drawn, and what is the purpose of or advantage of Gantt chart? No need to explain further. You only need to look at how Gantt chart is created, because it may be an applied question where you may be asked to draw a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart contains calendar on its y-axis and the list of activities on its x-axis, and then it plots each activity individually in the work area to show that at any particular time which activities will be completed, which activities will be nearing completion, which activities will be still waiting to start. It also represents dependencies and milestones. Dependencies are shown with the help of arrows between the activities. Milestones are shown by a solid diamond on the activity diagram, which represents the date when a particular review will take place. So Gantt chart is a very important question. You also learned how to calculate critical path. So the question may have, if there is an applied question, it may also ask you to calculate the critical path. Now, as you remember from the book has told that the path which has the largest duration is your critical path. So you already know how to calculate the critical path as well. Float and total float and free float, forward pass, backward pass, all of these are important questions for the MCQs and true false, but not very important otherwise. What are the methods, slide number 40, what are the methods to shorten the project schedule? There are three main techniques which we can use to reduce the project time schedule. One is we reduce the duration. Second, we crash the activities by reducing, means not only duration but putting more resources on the activities so that they can be completed before time, and fast tracking by putting activities in parallel so that at one time, if the plan says that 2 activities will be executing, you put another activity in the same time so that the time can be reduced. So these 3 methods can be used for reducing the time. Multitasking can be an important question. Buffer, what is a buffer? And what are its various types? A buffer is the additional time, it's not the float, it's additional time that we give to various critical activities so that if those activities get delayed, we still may have time to overcome that. There are 2 kinds of buffers. One is called project buffer, the other is called feeding buffer. A project buffer is a buffer where we assign buffer to any kind of activities, whether they are on critical path or not on critical path. Feeding buffer, we only assign buffers to the activities on the critical path. Murphy's law and Parkinson's law state that giving buffers does not really help in making the project successful. We already talked about the PERT formula. Next important conceptual question, how do we control the schedule, starting from slide 48 and slide 49. How do we control the schedule? Different guidelines are given on slide number 48 and slide number 49. How do we manage people? Slide 51. This is the last important question from chapter 6, and this is where all of these chapters end. So this was the revision. These are the important questions. You can say this is the study guide for this midterm exam. As I already mentioned, there will be 20 MCQs, there will be 10 true false, there will be 3 short questions. Out of those 3 short questions, 2 will be conceptual and 1 will be applied. The applied question can come from chapter 3, chapter 4 and chapter 6. Conceptual question can come from any of the 5 chapters that we have covered. Now, does anyone have any questions? I will see you continue submitting. I will see if I could, I will do that. You prepare your exam. If you have not submitted yet, I will see if I could do this. Yeah, I understand. So you prepare for your exam. I will see to it. After exams, you submit. I will do something about it. Any other questions? If you don't have any questions, then we will close the session, close this recording, and I will start the next session as well, which is a question answer session. If you have any questions, you can join that session. Thank you so much. I hope this recording was useful. This revision was useful. Wishing you all the best for your midterm examination. See you all next week, inshallah. Take care and Allah Hafiz.
تم إيقاف التسجيل.